goodness. I think we're live now.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, there's something. Jeez. So we had this whole awesome thing. We'll get it right next time. I'll do it right at the end.
I think we're live now. Oh my goodness.
Oh, there's something. Jeez. So we had this.
Okay.
All right. I think I got it figured out. I'm sorry, but I'm hearing this.
The echo might have been on my end. I just muted.
Okay. Okay, good. That's probably what it is. My goodness. Sorry about the technical glitches again. We've got this whole thing. Jeremiah did this incredible theme song, and it was my job to run it. And I'm getting a bitrate error. Anyway, hopefully I'm coming through. Guys, give me a thumbs up if you're hearing and seeing me. Are we good? All right. Jay from Delusionals Arcade, thank you for tweeting out the link. My goodness. Encore MPW, thanks for joining. My goodness. One of these days, we're going to figure this out, right? I thought we had Jeff Kinder. Wow. ENKO, thanks for joining. Anybody who's not part of the podcast, can you just confirm that we are streaming and you can hear what's going on? All right. So hopefully things are good. Like I said, eventually we'll figure this out, right? Anyway, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, welcome. Thanks for joining the Coin Jam podcast, episode 2. I guess what they say is, once is an accident, twice is a coincidence. So here is your coincidence episode. What we do here, we cover basically anything related to, coin-operated amusement machines. Arcade games, classic arcade video games, pinball, amusement machines, cigarette machines, vending machines, right? Claw machines, all kinds of stuff, right? Our sort of meat and potatoes are, arcade video games and pinball, but we cover everything. Basically, you've got 4 guys here. All of us are content creators, whether on YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or kind of all over the place. And we just get together about once a month and talk about what we're working on. We love engaging with the audience. Thank you, Jay. Yes, I do have a new microphone here, so hopefully we sound a lot better than we did last time. And thanks, Jeff, for confirming that we're working good. Sorry about those technical glitches at the beginning, but I think we're ready to roll here. So, again, quick intro. This is the Coin Jam podcast. I'm Charlie from Overtime Arcade. I'm joined by Jeremiah from Coin Op Corner. Liam from Retrobotics, sorry, one too many syllables there, and Kay from Prime Arcade. You can find myself, Jeremiah, and Liam on YouTube, and Kay really posts on TikTok and Facebook, so we've got kind of all of our bases covered. Yeah, and again, I'm a little bit flustered, and I'm frustrated with myself. We even practiced this beforehand, but we'll get it right. We'll get a good intro going in the future. So again, thanks everybody for joining. Again, this is episode 2. Yeah, I think by the time we hit our 150th episode, it'll be smooth sailing. So basically, we've got a bunch of different stuff, questions that we're going to cover, sort of different topics each episode. But we're also going to get started with some sort of standard topics, right? And I've kind of unilaterally decided they're the 3 Ps. Pickups, projects, and plans. So basically, any recent pickups you've made, different games, machines, whatever. Tell us a little story about that. The projects that you're currently working on, what you're sort of doing, what you've accomplished, maybe what you're frustrated with, and any sort of plans or needs going forward. A part that you're looking for, what you're planning to do next with these projects, that sort of thing. So I am going to randomly pick Liam to go first. Liam was just telling us about a pickup he made today, actually. But Liam, why don't you get us caught up to date on any pickups you've made recently?
So today I went ahead and drove down to North Carolina with my wife. She did all the driving, actually.
From Virginia, right? You live in Virginia, just like me.
But we went down to pick up a whole bunch of CRTs, just because we needed some extras, color CRTs. We had a bunch of black and white spares, but I really wanted a non-burned tube for our joust restoration, which is still in progress. So we got 3 19-inch CRTs. 2 of them are K7000s, and one of them is a Geo7, and one 25-inch now. Also, we got a couple loose Geo7 and 4900 chassis and a bezel, and that all came to $50. So I'm feeling pretty good about if one of those works, it'll be worth it.
So
One
you
is
spent more on
fixable.
gas.
No, we took her hybrid. It's
Oh,
all
okay.
good. It's all done on it was like 25 bucks of gas.
So what was the story with the seller? Is he downsizing or getting out of the hobby?
Yeah, so
or what's going on?
he told us that he is transitioning from video arcade games to pinball only, and was selling everything related to video arcade games he had left. I saw him hand off a stack of AR2s to another guy right as I was walking in for $100. I'm like, no, please. They have all gone. He also had some Mortal Kombat boards, some other stuff. Nothing I was interested in. DK Jr., that kind of thing.
But there's pinball games that have a lot of the same parts, like even CRTs, like Baby Pac-Man, and
that was a very vanishingly
Episode 1.
small number of pinball machines, none of which this guy had. And if I correct me if I'm wrong, Baby Pac used a 13-inch monitor. Revenge from Mars is the only one that used a 19-inch. So Revenge from Mars and Granny and the Gators. No, Granny and the Gators is actually the same as Baby Pac. And there was only one 13-inch monitor this guy had. So we didn't grab it. It looked in bad shape, and we have spares of those anyway.
And I think there's some Williams, early 80s pinball that use some of the same boards as like Defender and Robotron and that.
So I can tell you that I know for sure that the system, I think it was like 7 to 9, used the same speech board as Sinistar. We've got one of those in the workshop right now, so the speech board is the same, and ours has got issues. So I'm hoping to eventually pick up another one. But yeah, no, Williams in particular was very good about their interoperability between parts. Unfortunately, this guy had no Williams parts. I looked.
So this was a good pickup, right? Filling the car with CRTs and other parts. Did this good day make up for getting skunked on your New England trip?
Yeah, no, it was a really great day. We went and got all the monitors, and we went to a massive warehouse bookstore afterwards, which Sam really enjoyed. It was fantastic. So the car came home full of goodies. I'm really hoping that the 25-inch will help with tomorrow's pickup, which is a converted Smash TV into Golden T99, no monitor in it. So hoping that I can mount the now monitor in it,
and a hacked up control panel.
Yeah, well, they tend to be always hacked up for Smash TV, because when you think about it, it's just joystick holes and a start button. So if you want to convert it to literally any other game, you're going to have to drill more holes in it. Luckily, my understanding of it is that Smash TV's control panel is equipped with a metal plate. So if I can just get another plate done, I can just mount it on top of it, and I don't even have to worry about patching up any of the holes.
Right on. Kay, how about you? Any pickups since the last podcast?
So a couple of weeks ago, I picked up the Getaway High Speed 2. And it was just one of those right place, right time kind of things, because I got called about it. And it was in the town next town over. And I was already in town. Guy gave me his address. I swung right by, paid cash, picked it right up. Timing couldn't have been better. But I can say that easily within the 20 years that I've been doing this, it was the best condition machine I'd ever worked on. This thing was mint. It's like they bought it brand new from the factory, put it in their house, and never touched it again. I couldn't find a scratch on it, either on the play field or on the side art or anything like that. You would expect regular wear and tear for a 30-year-old machine, but this thing was mint.
So a mint Getaway that goes for like $5,000. Well,
if you look on like a price guide, a Getaway is worth somewhere between $3,500, $4K, maybe a little more. I went through it, shopped it out, put LEDs in it and spotlights, and went through the boards and put a remote battery holder and all that good stuff. And I sold it for a little bit above that. So that was a good sale. Went to a good home. Although it's funny, I sold it to an older couple. that was buying a couple of machines for their grandkids. And the questions I got directly after I sold it told me that they had no idea how to play pinball, because the first question she sent was, is it normal to have 3 balls at the same time? She had never played anything with multi-ball.
Only in
either, so-
pinball.
yeah, only in pinball. It's a completely foreign concept to her. And then I had sold them a multicade as well. And she's like, is it normal for the joystick to be on the left? Yeah, no, that's pretty typical. What else did she ask? Oh, she was saying it like this game keeps making like this electronic pop noise, like when you shut it off or whenever certain things happen. Is like, yeah, that's the knocker that lets you know you got like an extra ball or something like that. That's good. You want that to happen. She's like, oh, neat. So, some of the people that saw that machine before I sold it, and then I told them, saw pictures of it, are mad that it went to a non-collector, just someone who wouldn't appreciate it. But you know what? She had money, and I think her grandkids are going to enjoy it. So
Yeah, I think those grandkids are going to appreciate it just fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Muggles are people too.
And other than that, I picked up just a Pac-Man a couple days ago. Nothing special, but it plays blind, and cosmetically, it's in really nice shape. I'm not going to have to replace the bezel or the control panel, or even really do the touch up on the paint or anything like that. I'm just going to fix the monitor, and it should be good to go. So,
Right on.
those are my 2 pickups lately.
And I know Jeremiah had a special one. Jeremiah had a special pickup. So tell us about that one.
Well, in the last episode, I mentioned that I was done with coin op collecting, but I said that I had 2 exceptions that if I ever found these, as rare as they are, I would make room for them and buy them. And one of them was a cocktail claw machine. And as you can see behind me,
What's that thing back there?
That's nothing. That's nothing. Yeah. So a guy in West Virginia posted on Clav saying that he had one of these and it was broken, wanted to know how to fix it. Immediately, I responded to the post and I said, here's what you should do. By the way, I want this and I will drive halfway there to meet you. By happenstance, he actually happened to be coming Kentucky within a few weeks. So I was able to pick this up just an hour from my house. It's an incredibly rare game. And I know it's just a claw machine, so people don't usually care. But if I were to pick a claw machine to have as like the best one, it'd probably be this one. So I'm just over the moon to have it. And that is all that I've got for pickups, hopefully for the rest of my life. But I'm very satisfied with it.
Well, I'm sure we'll be able to peer pressure you into making a bad decision. So it's a cocktail. So you sit at it, right? Is the glass top? So like, could this be in a pizza shop and you could have your drink and your pizza on the surface and then move it out of the way when you want to play, like a regular cocktail machine?
Let's find out. Let's find out. Hold on.
So this is a live demo.
A live demo. So there are drinks on top of it.
Okay.
And if I insert a coin.
We see it. So did he fix it or did you fix it?
Let me get back close to the mic. So this guy worked for a guy who owns a family entertainment center. And the guy who owned the entertainment center fixed what the issue was. It was actually just that the string on the claw got wound up backwards. And anyone who's dealt with claw machines knows that's like one of the simplest things that can happen to them. So I'm kind of sad that it wasn't broken, because I would have loved to have gone through like every step of it and fixed it. And if it was broken, it probably would have been a lot cheaper.
Well, but you did fix it just sort of with advice as opposed to, hands-on.
Well, I just gave him some general advice, like, look through the relays, get a multimeter, kind of follow the circuit and see where your circuit stops working. But it wasn't anything to do with that. It was just the string backwards. So no, I didn't even fix it through the internet, unfortunately.
Well, you loaded it up with toys. And is it 2-player? Is it like a head-to-head, like a cocktail machine?
No,
okay.
It's just the one.
Yep. Okay, cool. So as for me, so I think last time was right after I made or last episode was right after I made the Moon Patrol cocktail pickup. Since then, I've been on a bit of a spree and have picked up 5 different games or 5 different cabinets since the last episode. And I was just texting some of the guys saying, I now have over a dozen projects in my garage. So the main one that I'll talk about is and I did a video about this already, Armor Attack. So this is a Cinematronics vector game from 1980. It's a black and white vector designed by Tim Skelly. The controls are a bit similar to Asteroids, right? Like, turn left, turn right, thrust, and fire. Yeah, Kay's got a whole warehouse. I don't do this for a living though. So turn left, turn right, thrust and fire. And basically you're a little Jeep in a war-torn, demolished city, and you're fighting against tanks and helicopters. There's 2 tanks at a time on the screen, and you've almost like a maze. You've got to drive around the city. You can't shoot through the buildings, and you have to drive around the buildings, and so do the tanks. There's only ever one helicopter on the screen, or that's as far as I've gotten. And the helicopters can fly over the buildings, right? So they're not sort of constrained by the maze, but they still have to have a line of sight to shoot you. It's a 2-player simultaneous game, which is kind of cool, especially for a vector. Yeah, so this was definitely not on my radar. It had popped up. I was down in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm in Virginia, just like Liam is. And it was there for a good price, and it kept dropping. Nobody was going after it. The seller listed it as working, but didn't have any images or video of it. And similar to that arcade peer pressure, like Jeff just highlighted in the live chat, Geach on Clav, on the Clav forums, sort of called me out and said, Charlie, why haven't you gone and gotten this thing, right? And it's not like it was in my backyard. It was a 5 or 6 hour drive. But I had a work trip taking me to North Carolina, and so I reached out to the seller, and basically, as the lowest I could go with a low ball without seeming impolite, and said, hey, I know this has been on listed for a while. I don't mean to insult you, but if you're looking to get rid of it and make space, I'm passing through, and I'd be happy to take it off your hands for this much. And he said yes, right. He did keep the marquee for like a art collection or whatever, but I actually had, and I didn't know this until I got home, an old beat up marquee in my pile of parts that I slapped on. So I got a complete working Cinematronics vector for $300 all in. So that was pretty cool. The other pickups I'll just touch on briefly. I haven't done videos about them yet, but as a special treat to our viewers or listeners of the podcast, last Friday, so not yesterday, but a week from yesterday, I got 2 Q*bert cabinets. Q*bert had been on my list. It was the top of my list for a while. And when it rains and pours, 2 fell into my lap. So I got 2 converted Q*bert cabs that I'll be restoring pretty soon. So thanks to Pat in Pennsylvania for selling those to me. And I'll talk more about these next time, and I'll do videos on them. And I just got back from Ohio about 3.5, 4 hours ago. And I don't know what it is about Ohio. There always seems to be awesome stuff for sale in Ohio. I got my Donkey Kong from Ohio, and I always see all these awesome deals in Ohio. And I had to go to Cincinnati for something. And on Friday, I went there Thursday night. And then Friday midday, I actually went to an abandoned mall. I'll have video of this. I went to an abandoned mall and got Atari Kangaroo in an Irish cabinet. It's missing the PCB, but I have a PCB, otherwise complete and in great shape. Hey, Jose, what's up in Chicago? Eric from Outlaws from the West, thanks for joining. So I got that yesterday, and then today on my way back from Ohio, I swung through like the Youngstown area and stopped by an arcade that was actually, I think they were moving they were like consolidating, moving their stuff to another location, and got a converted Defender that's now a super high impact football. So I'll convert that either back to a dedicated Defender, or maybe I'll do a multi-Williams. I'm not sure. Jay from Delusionals Arcade is saying, convert one of the Q*berts to Mad Plants. I thought about it. I don't know. What's really tempting is I saw, who was it? Electric Starship Arcade just posted a video of the Dallas auction, and a Q*bert went for $4,000 there. And so did a Three Stooges, but Three Stooges is obviously much rare and a terrible, terrible, terrible game. Liam and I were talking about this. I think Three Stooges might have the worst audio of any sort of mass-produced video game ever. So yeah, so more to come on the two Q-Berts and the kangaroo, the Irish kangaroo, and the Defender. Okay. So
Just a second, not to interrupt,
oh,
but
please.
I was at that auction and I was watching as that Q-Bert got bid on and thinking, is this what Q-Bert is worth now? Because that seems like a lot. And I've got a Q-Bert, project buried deep in the corner, but I've got one. And so I approached the second
place
bidder
guy.
and gave him my business card. I was like, if you're looking for a Q-Bert, I'll let your boy. So
$39.50.
yeah, I just got to fix that thing up and maybe I've got a buyer.
Beautiful. All right. Things are picking up in the chat. Original Q-Bert boards, no. So I've got a line on a couple. I know Josh was on, I don't know if he's still on, Josh from Encore. He's got a buddy selling a working Q-Bert main board. I think Jeff just sold some Q-Bert boards, but I keep hitting refresh every day on the J-Rock Milestar, which is rat slime backwards. This should be entertaining. Thanks for joining. Nope, you're not late. Don't worry about it. And Jeff wants to make a Q-Bert cubes. So cool. Moving on. Projects. Let's talk about our current projects. And again, I'm going to go to Liam because I know he's got, as of even today, some updates with his Joust restoration. So why don't you tell us what's going on there, Liam?
This Joust has been my love and my bane of my existence for a while. It has consumed far more of my time than I thought it originally was going to consume, mostly because it just turned out to be so much more involved. So, in effort to restore it properly, I've constructed a full paint booth in my garage, lined everything in plastic and paper, and filters and extraction fans and everything else that could be needed to be done to make sure I don't suffocate myself. If
this sounds like Liam is describing a murder room from Dexter, that's because it's exactly what it is.
Oh, no, it looks exactly like that. There are floodlights behind the plastic lining the walls, making sure that I can see everything. It really does look creepy. In any case, no, they're LED. They're very, very, very cool. No fire hazard here.
If you find it concerning that that's a fire hazard, just give me a call.
I don't want any sprinklers. I'll lose the cabinet. In any case, I got a compressor set up for high volume, low pressure, and I have officially done the first coat of brown paint on it using the HLVP gun, and it actually looks pretty nice for a first attempt. I might need to sand it down and do another coat with a finer spray, but I'm really liking this versus the bad lacquer that I've done before. So I'm really optimistic that this will be the final stage of work for this Joust machine. And then I can bring it inside and put all the electronics I've been hoarding into it. As for other projects, my Robotron is 99.9% done. It is down to a single chip that is bad on the J-Rock that I am struggling to find a replacement for. Once that is done, the game will be fully working. And I've also got an Asteroids in the workshop that I've been working on. I think that's down to maybe one or two bad chips too, because I can get the game playing. It just crashes after a little bit. I'm thinking program counters, which I got new ones in the mail today. So I can finally test it as soon as I find some time. So that's where I'm at.
And I am following Liam's Joust. Jay says it's brown paint. It is brown paint. You've been spraying brown paint. I've been following Liam's Joust project with interest because I'm also doing a Joust right now as my primary restoration project. And I don't have to redo the stencils, but I've got a little bit of touch-up painting to do. And I do want to buy and get a HVLP spray gun set up because I am going to have to redo the stencils on my Ms. Pack, which is the sort of project that I was doing before and then put on a hiatus for Joust. So I'm basically copying everything Liam does and letting him be the sort of guinea pig that's one step ahead of me. And like, I won't make any of his mistakes, as few as they are. I'll make all new mistakes of my own. And one thing that we discovered, we were worried that because he bought a 20-gallon air compressor, we're like, is that going to be enough? Right? That's like right on the edge of the recommended often you'll see recommendations for a 30-gallon air compressor for HVLP just to have enough volume, but sounds like the 20-gallon worked out just fine. So those are a lot easier to find, especially in the oil-free versions.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
got
my
lucky
own.
at Lowe's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you got the open box
Yeah,
discount, right?
they showed up that exact day, and apparently they shredded the boxes they were bringing inside, and they gave it to me for 30% off. So
Beautiful,
very
beautiful.
new.
So yeah, my Joust project. Latest update is the same thing from the last video. Doing a bunch of bondoing. The sort of in the final stretch is really just some cosmetic work. Bondoing the base. That's all going well, except I had some, even while I was sanding the bondo, I had some delamination. So I'm going to have to fix that. It's just cosmetic. And then once I get that done, finish the bondo and sanding, it'll be a little bit of just maybe a layer or two, maybe 12 inches, the bottom 12 inches of the brown paint on the side need to be touched up, and I'll spray the kick panel black again and probably touch up the control panel. And then it's done, reassembly, and we're good to go there. Yeah, brown paint. That's the magic word. That is a very, very old joke, but a very good one, Stephen. Yeah, and what's special about this Joust is that it had it originally, so it got converted to an SNK Street Smart that I've successfully deconverted. And it originally came with optical sticks instead of the normal, leaf mechanical leaf switch stick. And so shout out to Brad Raydell again for hooking me up with a couple of restored original Joust optical sticks. Kay, other than that getaway pin, any other sort of interesting projects lately? And Kay's always got a ton going on because he does this for a living. The rest of us are rank amateurs.
So I started on the Pac-Man because all I needed was a monitor rebuild. And I'm sorry to say it's time to pour an ounce out for the homie because my Hacko FR301 desoldering gun finally bit the dust after just years of faithful service.
Being dropped too many times?
Actually, no. Although I did drop it too many times and it snapped in half twice and got really glued back together, but it survived that.
Been there.
Now, I had to take the back panel off and hold the hose in a certain way to get it to actually do the suction, but it still worked. But now it no longer heats. So it still does the suction, but without the heat, it's not going to do me much good.
Jeremiah, if you're looking for a fire hazard, look no further.
So that one finally bit the dust. So I had to order another. It should come in tomorrow. So I had to put the monitor repairs on the back burner because I had no way to desolder anything. I went to 3 hardware stores just looking for a manual solder pump because I still have a soldering station. So I can solder, but I can't desolder. So nowhere has it just a freaking pump. So you got to wait for the new one to come in. So I continued on a project that I started a couple months ago, got, frustrated with along the way from, was working on a Williams Rancho pinball, EM pinball. And the problem I'd been having with it is that the ball count unit would step up. It would try to, but the step up solenoid would just barely flicker instead of actually doing a full completion, which I fixed today. I found out it was just one of the switch stacks on the score motor just wasn't making contact long enough for it to get a good pulse sent to that solenoid to fire correctly. So I fixed that. I had to do it again on a different one because the out hole kick out wasn't strong enough either. That was just a misaligned switch. So now the game will start and play and count correctly. Right now it doesn't have a right flipper though, and I'm not sure why. So that's the next thing to do. After I get the flipper working, it should be a fully playable game, and then I can work on cosmetics, and then that thing is done.
Awesome. And it just never ends, right? It's just project after project. It's just work.
There's at least 100 machines in my shop waiting for me to get to, and I add to it all the freaking time. So yeah, it stops when I die. There
you go. Hopefully 100 or 200 years from now. And you can do, one game a year and be good. Jeremiah, I know you've been working on something that none of us have any experience with. So tell us about this project that you've been fighting.
So if anyone is subscribed to me on YouTube, which by the way, let me check something. Earlier today, I was at 299 subscribers. And if I don't have, okay, yeah, I'm still at 299. Can one person subscribe and just get me over that, please? Anyway, if you're subscribed to me, I've been posting pretty regular updates about, I've been fixing a cigarette vending machine from the 1950s. And being from the 50s, it's electromechanical, which means it's got a lot of steps involved in how it works, but it's really simple overall. It's just go through each simple step and figuring out where it's stopping, fixing that, and then going on to the next thing. So that's been fixed for a couple of weeks now, and I would have had the video finished today. I wanted to have it finished so everyone could have a little time to watch it and we could talk about it here. But last night I got a phone call from my neighbor saying, hey, my cow's giving birth and we're having issues. Can you come help? So I was distracted with cow birth last night. Otherwise, that would be done. But yes, cigarette vending machine is what I've been working on. And I've got a slot machine and a Pac-Man machine that I'm moving on to next. And there will be videos on both of those.
Distracted by cow birth either sounds like a euphemism or a great band name.
I was going to say that is going to be the name of my pop punk heavy metal band.
Any bluegrass or country, sort of influence on that?
I don't know. I like Johnny Cash, so that's about as close to country as I get.
Right on. And so now that you've, cut your teeth, so to speak, on the cigarette machine, what's going to come next? Are you going to stay with like 1950s vending machines, or maybe do like 50s and 60s EM pins? Because I imagine some of that stuff will transfer.
Well, the EM pins are exponentially more elaborate than the vending machine. I mean, there are singular mechanisms on those pinball machines that are probably as complicated as the whole vending machine. And another thing is, like I've said, I am kind of trying to get out of this, at least out of it enough to not be constantly doing it. So if something comes along my path that's cheap enough that I can justify buying it and fixing it and flipping it, then yes, I'll go for it. But I don't have any plans to continue buying stuff to fix, because like I said a second ago, I've got a slot machine and a Pac-Man machine and like 10 gumball machines that I need to work on and get out of the shop.
And ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a note. Breaking news: Coin Op Corner has passed 300 subscribers. So that plug has been effective. And
right. A toast to Coin Op Corner.
There you go.
He's too famous for us now.
Yep.
Sláinte.
There we go. And my cat woke up for this. That's how excited he is.
Maybe he is your 301st subscriber.
There we go. Man, I should have started just blatantly begging years ago.
So last of our standard questions before we go into the topics of the episode. What are your plans? What are you sort of working on next? What do you need? What parts are you looking for? I was going to go to Jeremiah first, but he stepped away. Liam, so Jeremiah, what's you kind of talked about it a little bit. You got the poker machine or the slot machine. You've got what else? Looking for any parts, anything unobtainable that you're would love to put a bat signal out for?
So I have got a slot machine that it's no one exactly knows what the specific history of it is. It looks like an American Bally slot machine. It may actually be a Bally cabinet, but the insides are a Japanese Pasha Slow or Pasha slot machine, and the branding on it is the Sands, which is a hotel casino from Vegas. I don't know if they're still in business or not, but because I think
they are.
Well, because it's so weird, like partially from Japan, maybe converted, who really knows? No one knows how to fix it. It's not like Pac-Man where 1,000 people have fixed 1,000 of them. So I'm going to have to go through that with the multimeter and the logic probe, and that's probably next after the Pac-Man. My most recent video game video was on the Pac-Man, where I bought 3 of them, and I had one that I didn't fix yet. And yeah, that one's been sitting for a little while. I need to get to that and fix that.
And Liam, you kind of alluded to this. I know that you're looking for something that probably isn't unattainable, but you can't quite figure out exactly what it is.
Yeah. So I have a J-Rock for my Robotron, which tangentially I'm also looking for the complete internals of a Robotron, but one of the buffers on that J-Rock is blown. It's a KOA PEC 1284. I can't for the life of me find a replacement for that chip that I can be certain is correct. I'm trying to find one right now. I've been in touch with J-Rock, but so far I've not had any success in getting a new one. It's just the symptom of this problem is that whenever I turn on the J-Rock, it plays fine, except for the fact that the left control is stuck on. So the your character will just go to the left of the screen and stay there, and then most assuredly die. Other than that,
That's so fun.
Yeah, parts I'm looking for. Picking up an empty Smash TV tomorrow, so I'm going to be looking for a board set, marquee, control panel very soon. I am looking for a lunar lander thruster interface for asteroids because I'm doing this asteroids to lunar lander conversion. I'm also looking for a lunar lander marquee, and I'm sort of looking for Robotron internals, boards, power supply, brick, that kind of thing. But that's mostly just a seeing if anything pops up, not actively searching.
There you go. And I mentioned, like even Jay and Jeff kind of talked about, they've got some either a J-Rock Milestar or Qbert hardware. But the main thing that I'm looking for, because some of that stuff is available, it's out there. The main thing I'm looking for that I can't find is for that Irish Kangaroo. So the Atari cabinets that were built in, I think it was Tipperary, Ireland, for the European market. Atari, started building cabinets in Europe, in Ireland, rather than, shipping them across the Atlantic, even though some of them made it their way back into Canada and like into Ohio or whatever. So those cabinets were a little bit different. They were kind of like in between a cabaret and an upright. And one of the things they did for some of them, including Dig Dug and Gravatar and Kangaroo and maybe some others, is the bezel and marquee are the same. They're like one piece of glass, right? Or plexi or whatever it was. And so you have the monitor, and like directly above it is a fluorescent bulb, and it's just sort of one opening. So it's one piece of glass that, the screen comes through the middle of the bezel part, and the fluorescent light comes through the top where the marquee would be, and then the speaker's right above it. So if anyone has a bead on a marquee / bezel, it's really a bezel with the integrated marquee. So a bezel for an Irish Kangaroo, let me know. Yeah, everyone hates Kangaroo. Yeah, I don't think it's a good game either, but didn't want to pass up a chance at a really cheap Irish cab. I know I think it's Arcade Art Shop in the UK has reproed the Dig Dug and Gravatar bezel marquees for the Irish cabs. So I was thinking about reaching out to them and seeing if they'd be willing to do even maybe a custom one-off. But I haven't even been able to find like a high-res scan of that bezel marquee. So yeah, putting that shout out. If anyone knows where to get a bezel / marquee for an Irish Kangaroo, let me know. And then finally, Kay, anything you're looking for to complete one of your projects?
I don't think there's any specific like rare part I'm looking for. Most of the stuff I'm working on is generic enough that I can just order a reproduction and call it good. I've got or
harvest it from one of the other 100 projects.
Yeah, make it my problem later. Other than just the Pac-Man and some multicades in the building and stuff like that, the only neat thing I'm working on is a black hole pinball machine, which is a repair for a client that they were hoping to have back before Christmas. So I'm a little bit behind on that, but that's how my backlog is right now. I've been quoting people 8 to 9 months on getting the repairs done. So since this thing has been in since November or so, and I'm about to start on it, I'm ahead of schedule. So you're welcome, people.
There you go. Well, awesome. And with that, we're done with the intro. So 44 minutes in, even though we started a couple minutes late. So we'll have to pick up the pace in the future, and that's all on me, to get the pacing and everything going. But as for the topics of the episode, we picked a couple here. We chat about these sort of on Discord between ourselves, over the intervening month between episodes. So the first one is kind of, again, a bit of a segue or a continuation from us talking about, ourselves and how we got into this. The first topic is, why do you collect what you do, right? The reasons behind it, the thought process behind it, why you collect certain types of machines or whatever. So Liam, why don't we start with you? Why do you do what you do?
The collection itself that we've put together, it occupies a very focal place in our house. It's sort of like a site of relaxation, our little like portal to a different time. And the games that we collect fall into 3 different categories, I feel like. Either the first category is the ones that my wife and I have a specific nostalgia for, from our childhood, Like for me, Crystal Castles and Gauntlet. For her, Miss Pac-Man. These types of things we remember playing as kids, and we went out and grabbed one. The second category are games that relate to things that my wife and I are specifically interested in. Like for me, Konami's Aliens. I'm a huge fan of Aliens. So we found that. We immediately decided to go and try to find one. And for her, X-Men, as she's a huge Marvel fan. And the third category are games that we've discovered and fallen in love with. And that would be for me, for example, Robotron. I had not really played before we got into this, and I love the game so much. And for both of us, the Addams Family pinball machine, we initially first tried it. We didn't like it very much, but it grew and grew on us. And now it's our #1 most desired machine of any type. So that would definitely be in the category 3. Being open to new games has been nice for us, for something that we hadn't thought of, because we actually have a list of games that we want, and it's in rank order. So what we're looking for and how much we want it. But for the most part, we just operate off of that list. So it has been rare to say that we have found a new game that we had not heard of and added it to the list.
Awesome. And I still think it's so cool that it's a team effort with you and your wife collecting and working on them. I love that. And Kay, I'm not going to let you give us the easy answer, which is you do this because it's, your business. So putting that aside, right, you do have some games as part of your personal collection at home, whatever. So tell us why you do that.
So yeah, I do have a small collection of my own, just 6 machines. I assume that my collection is based around, for the same reason that most is, the games that you remember as a kid. That's what my Cabaret Miss Pac-Man and my Play Choice 10 are. Those are things that I have nostalgia for from growing up and playing those games then. And then I've got machines that I remember from my first job at an arcade 20 years ago, things that I discovered later. So I brought a pinball machine and my Drum Mania drum simulator, my DDR, and my multicade. Those are all things that I discovered later and fell in love with, later on. The things that I want to add to my collection are in one of those 2 categories. Either I remember it as a kid, or it fell into my lap at some point when I was working at the arcade and I liked it then. So I assume that's what most people's collections are. It's just things they have nostalgia for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's probably 3 things. One, it's that, right? The nostalgia piece, but it's also, when I was a kid, the only 2 ways that I got to play a coin-op game was either I was bumming a quarter off of my parents, or dip it into my measly allowance, right? And so there was a limit to both of those
or
things.
You dug into a coin slot or a coin return and you found it,
or found a coin door that wasn't closed or something. I don't think I can't recall ever. Yeah. Or I usually had more luck with like payphones and pulling a quarter out of the coin return on a payphone. So there's that, right? Being able to, those games that were sort of drip fed to you 1 quarter at a time. Now you can play as much as you want. Reason number 2 is to be able to share them with my children. So I have 4 kids, all 10 and under, although they're all about to get, level up birthday wise. We're sort of in the midst of that right now. So being able to share that with my kids spend much more time playing the games than I do. I spend a lot more time working on them, and my kids always are like barging in here, and I'm literally on a work call or something, and my preschooler is demanding to play pinball or something like that. So being able to share all that with my kids and sort of relive that wonderment sort of secondhand, vicariously. And thirdly is I love working on these things, right? Like that the second game that I ever got was the Donkey Kong Jr. Cocktail, and that was the first one that was dead when I got it. And that sort of rush, when because of the whatever clumsy steps that I took to bring it back to life, and it actually worked, right? Like that's like a rush that I always chase now. But fortunately, it's not chemical dependent, right? It is just endorphins or whatever. So working on these things, and like I said, bringing something back from the grave, from the electronic graveyard, is something that I really love. And Jeremiah, how about you?
So I think I mentioned to you on last episode that I grew up like the Namco Museum games on consoles and like the little battery powered plug and plays and all. So pretty much every game I have back there is a Namco arcade classic, and that's because of me playing those, the Namco Museum and the plug and plays as a kid. The only exceptions are the House of the Dead, which was the first game I got that fell into my lap, and then the Zaxxon. And the reason I got Zaxxon is because that's the only game that I ever experienced in its original arcade glory. Because as a child, the church my parents were taking me to had a Zaxxon for some reason. And I specifically recall getting in trouble for spending all my tithes and offering that I had on the Zaxxon one Sunday. So yes, similar.
Did you never robbed the collections basket to feed it to Zaxxon, did you? But I guess like if you did, it would still go to the church anyway. So no harm, no foul.
No comment.
Yeah, way to cover up blasphemy there.
No comment. Yeah.
I agree with your point about the plug and play, though. I definitely remember as a kid playing on PlayStation 1, the Midway Arcade Classics. And I think now we have every game that was on that. And we just picked up a Millipede PCB literally a couple days ago.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. But yeah, similar to everyone else, it's kind of the stuff I grew up with. And that's my qualification for the video arcades. There are a couple other kind of coin ops that I like for other reasons, like the claw machines there. I've had like 6 or 7 different kinds of claw machines over just personal, hello kitty, personal collection and the business. And I kept these 2 here because they have really off the wall mechanisms that no other machines really have. And that makes them particularly interesting. It's like if you remember like the old Nokia cell phones, compare that to a modern phone, and the Nokia is just so much more interesting because that was before everything was standardized. So, and then lastly, there's coin ops like gumball machines and stuff, and those are so small and so easy to resell that I'll just kind of buy those if they look neat and if they're cheap. So we got nostalgia for the video arcades, the different mechanisms for the claw machines, then just unbridled hedonism for everything else.
I love it. I love it. How many cardinal sins are you going to hit? Right. You can fill out your bingo card. So I will say, I want to point out, right, that we have delivered what's on the tin with this podcast, right? So we've talked about arcade video games. We've talked about pinball. We've talked about vending machines. We've talked about claw machines, redemption machines. We talked about Packy-Slow and slot machines. We haven't talked about jukeboxes yet, unless Liam mentioned it. But Jeremiah, while we'll stay with you for a second. Let's talk about limits, right? So passions can be good and can be healthy unless they become obsessions. So what kind of limits do you put on yourself, whether it's financial or spatial or just to keep yourself sane? I think you have said repeatedly that you're done, and every time you say that, you inevitably get something else. So what limits do you put on yourself?
Okay, so yes, I do. Even when I was super into it, I had like a built-in cringe limit, and I've codified that into sort of like rule in general is under $500 or $500 and under, and 3 hours away or under. Now the 3 hour rule, I'm pretty willing to break. Once we get up to 5 and 6 hours, I start to go insane at that point driving. But I've only ever broken the $500 rule on that thing there, and that's because the dude delivered it all the way from West Virginia, so I can justify it in that case. So that's my rule financially. And it's not so much of like, can you afford it, can you not? It's more of the principle, like spending this much on something. I cringe to think of these people spending like 10 grand on some new pinball machine, but if that's your one thing and you just want that one, I get it. But if you've got like, I've got a whole bunch of games now. If I spent 10 grand on each of those, that would not be a good living situation. And then spatially, that's the expense for the space. I've limited myself to just this corner here. So if anything, right now it's pretty much at capacity. I may be able to squeeze one more in, but if it got too much tighter, something else would have to go. So
very cool. And I sort of hesitate to ask this question of Kay, because this is the guy with 100 projects in a warehouse. So what are the limits for you as part of your business, right? Like if somebody said, hey, I've got 50 slot machines over here for free. Come and get them. What do you say to that?
What's your address? That's what I said, because I went and did that. As far as the business goes, space isn't that big an issue. I do have a pretty large warehouse, and if I actually consolidated my machines and put them in rows and columns and made them all nice and neat, I probably have twice as much space. So unless I find a warehouse with 100 plus machines, fitting them in there wouldn't be too bad. As far as money goes, for the business, it comes to, can I make money off of this? If I can't, then I don't buy it, because why would I? Because I'm not buying it for me. And even for the machines that I have bought for myself, I put it under the same constraints. If I were to buy this machine for the business, could I make a profit off of fixing it and selling it? And if I can't, it's really hard to justify buying it for myself, because I don't go back there and indulge in my own collection very often anyway. But everything back there I did get was something that if I were to pull it out of the collection and sell it, overall, I still would have made a profit. And for some of those machines, that's what I originally bought them for anyway, was, just to fix and flip. But I decided, hey, I've got the space. I like this game. Let's throw it in there. I can always sell it later. So, all the machines in my own collection, I didn't pay retail prices for, with two exceptions. One of them was the Drum Mania, because I really wanted it and I found one on eBay. It was a project, so I got it decently cheap, but I still had to have it shipped to me from Las Vegas. So overall, I spent, maybe a little bit more than I should have, but it was
that
I
Bob?
haven't come across. Do what?
Was that from Bob? You said Vegas?
No, it was a private seller. It wasn't from any warehouse or anything like that. It's just someone who had one. And since a couple of the symbols weren't working, it went for pretty cheap, because I guess no one else wanted to put the work into it. So after having it shipped, it little over my limit, but I haven't even seen one since then. And I bought that thing 3 years ago, so it's a good thing I jumped on it when I did. The other one being the Bride of Penbot. I did pay more or less retail price for that, because the seller had bought it from a retail place and had already been shopped out and upgraded with a few things. But I really wanted a Bride of Penbot, and I was just in a good place when it came to cash on hand, so I went ahead and bit the bullet and bought it, and still got a decent deal. If I were to sell it, I could probably get a little more for it than I bought it for, so I could still justify it.
So for me, it's a couple of things, right? So cost is definitely something that I aim at when I buy and I only buy projects now. I have very, very few games I bought working, like the Class of 1981, I know for sure, and Centipede was kind of working. And the Star Trek Pinball, that was working. So I almost always buy just broken projects, and usually I try to get them for 300 or less and as little as possible, which means I'm often buying ratty waterlogged stuff. Other than that, sort of like Jay from Delusionals Arcade was saying in the live chat, it's sort of the limits of my wife's patience. But she's pretty cool about it, because this, working on this stuff kind of keeps me out of trouble, and the kids enjoy it, and it's a constructive use of time to some degree. But like I mentioned before, even space really isn't an issue for me, at least not yet. And I say that with over a dozen projects in the garage. But my wife said something, and Jeremiah didn't believe me when I told him this. My wife said something that was just so beautiful to me the other day. She was talking about whatever, and she's like, why don't you bring some more games from the garage into the house? And I fell in love with her all over again. And she even suggested the NBA Jam, because the kids have been playing that a lot, and they've been coming out to the garage to play it, which, climbing on over stuff to play that. So I've got to clean up the control panel a little bit, but we'll bring that down. And so for Liam, you kind of have this partner in crime. So did the two of you kind of egg each other on, or do you kind of restrain each other from going into the deep end?
It depends on the game, and it depends on the time and what sort of commitments. It's like, is one of us super stressed about something, trying to not aggravate that, but here's a game. I know I've had my struggles with that, but yeah, no, for example, when we picked up the asteroids, I haven't made a video about this because it was out of Disney World's arcade, and Sam loves everything space, and let's go get this thing right now. And we brought it home, and it's nearly working now. So I'm really excited about that machine. But yeah, no, we do egg each other on a lot of the time, and it's just like, are we being bad? Are we being bad? No, let's do it. Come on, let's get in the car.
You're each other's enablers, right?
At times, we both have a bit of a collector personality. We have too many arcade machines to fit in our arcade space, and too many books to fit in our library. So that's
There you
where
go.
we're at.
So before we go to the next question, we actually have one from the audience, and I think was it Wayne? Yeah, Wayne asked, "What's everyone's Grail game that at no matter what cost you must have it?" And Jeff chimed in saying Cosmic Chasm. But Liam, can I guess? I think I know what it is. Is it the 6-player X-Men?
That would actually this up there, but the number one game that my wife and I want is the Addams Family pinball machine. That is the number one machine. And for video arcades, the number one we want in terms of it being achievable for us, perhaps, is a Star Wars arcade, followed by a Major Havoc, in the sense of I would love to have one, but the odds of getting one are very small. An original dedicated cabinet.
Well, and I think, there's a couple ways to look at this question, right? There's like, what's your Grail game? And is even that something that you're willing to spend, no matter the cost, right? So I think this goes back to
definitely get a Addams Family at some point. It is very high on that list. Right now, we have access to one that we can play for free as much as we want. But as soon as we move, we will not have that anymore. So we will be missing it.
I think for me, right, I don't know if any of them are necessarily grails, and it's certainly, I would never do the whole, no matter the cost. But the only thing that sort of comes to mind of like just sort of, that fits that category is a Spy Hunter cockpit, Spy Hunter sit down. Because again, I remember I've talked about this before, very distinctively playing that as a kid. At Jester's Courtyard in Meriden, Connecticut was sort of my early childhood arcade, and they're out there, right? But the prices have just been going insane, right? Like there was a thread on Clav recently about it, and a couple of collectors who both own nice Spy Hunter cockpits. Both said separately that they had been offered $10,000 for them and flatly turned them down. So yeah, and there was an auction recently. I forget where. Might have been a Winston-Salem, maybe. There was an auction recently that was drivable, where there was a Spy Hunter cocktail project. But I'm sure I'll come across one eventually. What's that Grail for you, Jeremiah? That will be the next thing that causes you to break your rule, saying that you're done buying coin-op machines.
Well, you notice, like, we have documented video evidence that long before this thing was on my radar, I said, I'm done with these 2 rare exceptions.
And none of us believed you.
I didn't really believe it either. So those 2 rare exceptions, the only one that's left is Mappy. And if Mappy came up, once again, we have the hard and fast limit of $500 in 3 hours. To some degree, I'll budge on that. But even like if it was $600 in 3 hours and 5 minutes away, I would cringe very hard at spending that much on a giant honking Mappy cabinet.
You would cringe the whole way home from picking it up, right?
I would. Ooh. So yeah, I don't think there's any machine that I would spend like $1,000 on just the pickup. I mean, over time, a lot of these have ended up costing over $1,000. Just the monitor gets flatline or whatever. But just outright a project machine, I couldn't see spending more than maybe $750, and that would be for like a Mappy in perfect shape right next door to me, and that would be as close as I can get to the Holy Grail, no matter the cost. And even then, like where would I put a Mappy back there? Something would have to go.
So not a Mappy that's had a haircut and had like the giant bezel chopped off?
No, I have seen somewhere there's a Mappy cocktail, and I don't know if that was a conversion kit.
I've seen one.
$400, and dude, that was within 3 hours. Because the cocktails, I could I could probably fit one of those a little easier. I would definitely go for that. And I can also get those on a truck without killing myself. But the one with the big like pizza box looking flap top thing, that how do you even get that on a truck?
Take the
You gotta
flat top
almost like,
off.
does it come off?
I believe so.
And with a hammer though.
Or use two people and kind of load it on its back, sort of, you know, bottom end going forward. I just want to take a second to say, what's up, She-Line Gaming in the house, joining us. That's awesome. Kay, how about you? For your personal collection, are there any grails that are must-haves for you?
There are some machines that I would really like to have, but as far as the question goes, where price is no object, there is no such game. And I know that for a fact because rhythm games like Beat Mania and My Drum Mania and DDR and things like that are what really got me into arcades in the first place and really got me, you know, quote unquote addicted. So there are a couple of rhythm games that are pretty rare to find that I would love to have. I'd love to have a Dance Maniacs and I'd love to have a Keyboard Mania. And I know that price is an object because I've recently seen some of those on online auctions that were close enough for me to drive and go pick up. And the bidding just went too high and I had to let them go. So, you know, I'm not often flush with cash to the point where I can just go pick up something for myself anyway. But, you know, once they hit a certain price point, you know, you gotta walk away, you gotta step back. And I don't regret it because I'd still be paying for that now. I, you know, probably have a red cheek from my wife beating the crap out of me for spending so much money on it. But
Well,
you know, I also don't have the space anyway, so it's hard to justify.
That being said, I think one of the things that I'm most impressed with by all of our answers to this question is that we all sound like very responsible, well-adjusted adults, right? Not going out and doing crazy stuff. That being said, right, there are a lot of, you know, bad collecting habits.
Don't apply responsible or well-adjusted to me. Like that, those are not. We drove 9 hours one way for X-Men.
And you'd go even farther for the 6-player, right?
Oh, probably.
Fly and like rent a U-Haul and bring it back. But so let's talk about that, right? It's like bad collecting mistakes, whether it's something that, you know, you've done yourself, you've seen in yourself, or you've kind of seen in others as a cautionary tale, something to avoid. So other than stealing from the collections basket, Jeremiah, let's talk about bad collecting habits that either you've you know, mistakes you've made or things that you've seen others do.
So bad collecting habits. I have had my whole life, like since maybe 11 years old, I've been obsessed with collecting different things. So going into the arcades, that was just a few years ago, I kind of knew to put limits on myself. But even so, I find that anytime something comes up that's, you know, let's say it's half of what it could go for, I get really excited. Like, you know, the way you get excited if you see $100 bill on the ground, you're like, oh, I've got to go get it. But unlike $100 bill on the ground, buying a coin op machine that's at half price is not really good for me. I'm not going to be able to immediately, you know, use that to get anything else. It's not of much benefit. So yeah, I've been trying to practice self-control with stuff that's a great deal. Maybe I could turn a profit on it, but I have to think, you know, I've got a workshop full of unfinished projects, and I've got every game I could ever want for myself behind me. So I really, I don't need to buy something just because it's a good deal. I feel better if I just let someone else who maybe that's their grail is whatever that thing is, just let someone else get it. Because most of the time at these prices, they're gone within a day and I forget that I've even seen them. So yes, finding things at a too low of a price and getting excited about it is a bad habit of mine.
So Liam, other than the driving 9 hours, what other mistakes have you made or seen in others?
Who said that was a mistake? I got the X-Men.
There you go. There you go.
Bad collecting habits. Like the one thing that is sort of like I've seen in this hobby that I'm trying not to do is hoarding random stuff that you don't have the game for or you're not actually going to use. Like I have a whole ton of chips. That's the one thing I hoard is I will, every time I buy something, if I need a chip, I'm going to buy like 5 of them because I know I'll eventually need them. And that strategy's worked out pretty well for me. I have little cabinets full of various chips, but I don't get the whole buying tons of PCBs that you're not going to use and storing them. I know some people do it, and I know it works out for some people, but it just seems like spending money on something that I'm not going to have any use out of, right? Like all the arcade machines that we've got, all the machines, we actually play them weekly. We play them pretty much daily, actually, at least some of them. And I just see this as a sink into a invisible collection. It's like something that's cataloged that you don't actually get to experience at any point in time.
Well, and I want to offer a counterpoint, right? So like, and almost to like what Jeremiah said, like I'm a sucker for like super cheap parts that I don't need, right? Like I think I got that Kangaroo PCB for $10. And a lot of people might say, you know, Kangaroo is such a terrible game that even $10 is overpriced. But that made it much more, you know, that led me to be much more willing to buy this Irish Kangaroo. So maybe it was a mistake, but you know, these things come through. And like you know, buying multiple chips when you need one, it's cheaper than paying shipping, right? Unless you're talking like Pokies or you know, Konami custom chips or something like that.
Well, I did go down to my local game store and buy a couple ball blazers.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. And Kay, I want to give a spin on this question again for you being, you know, doing this professionally. What mistakes, and you know, leave the, you know, names, you know, anonymous to protect the innocent. What mistakes have you seen sort of maybe customers make?
So before I get into that, another counterpoint, I do hoard PCBs and bezels and marquees and all things like that, but it makes a little more sense for what I'm doing because
You do it as
so
a
many
business.
things, yeah, so many things pass through my hands that I will eventually, you know, have a use for that, or have a cabinet that I can test a board in, or, you know, sometimes I'll pick something up and be like, I've got one of those. Yeah, I've got 3 board sets lying around. I can finally use this machine to test them to see if they work. And you know, if the one that comes with doesn't work, then maybe I've got a working one on.
Yeah, I'll grant it definitely makes sense in your case, but like, yeah, you've got a revolving door of every machine that's known to man coming through your workshop.
So what I'm hoping for, Kay, is there's some kind of story of somebody showing up to pick up a game with a car, with a vehicle that's completely incapable of transporting the machine that they've purchased.
Not really, no. I'm pretty good about giving people the dimensions for machines. Although someone has shown up and, you know, looked at his machine and was like, "This isn't going to fit in the space I thought it was going to." It's like, well, I sent you the dimensions. If you had a tape measure, you could have figured that out on your own. But I mean, it was a 2-player dance machine, so yeah, it's got a little heft to it there. But you know, if I give you the dimensions and you come look at it, you're like, "Oh, it's not going to fit." Oh, that's on you. But as for bad collecting habits, people always say, you know, do your research. But when it comes to these machines, research can only do so much because prices are so volatile and they depend on so many factors when it comes to geography and condition of the machine and, you know, rarity and things like that. But really, a machine is worth what you're willing to pay for it. So the best thing to do is determine what it's worth to you and stick to that number. And more than anything, be willing to walk away from something that's going to cost more than you want to pay.
That's key.
And you know, maybe you get lucky and, you know, they can't sell it. They end up coming down to your price and you get it anyway. You can find yourself overpaying on a lot of things if you just get caught up in the moment. You're like, no, I got to have this right now. If it's not something that's exceptionally rare and you don't think you're going to find again, just sit back and wait. Another one will come up.
Oh, there's always going to be another one, right? Unless it's that I don't know. What's the least produced computer space color? Right? Blue, I think maybe.
They
right?
only made one white one.
Yeah. Oh, no, I thought it was painted for the movie, maybe.
It was apparently white. Just
Okay.
white. And McLemore's got it.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So to continuing this kind of thread, you know, kind of throw it to everybody, right? Like when have you had that kind of, you know, oh crap, I'm in over my head sort of moment, right? For me, the only time it was actually like this trip, right? So when I got so I only ever move games in my pickup truck, right? Now my second truck that I've used now for moving games, and you know, like if there was an opportunity, I would rent a U-Haul or something, right? But so far I've only ever moved games in my pickup. And up until recently, only ever one at a time, only ever picked up one at a time. Sometimes I would fill it with, extra monitors and parts and stuff too. But this past, Friday last week, when I got the 2 Kubert cabinets, that was the first time that I ever, did 2 at a time, right? And that was really easy. Pat up in Pennsylvania just moved into a new workshop / warehouse, and he's got a really nice, really convenient single bay like loading dock that's pickup truck height, right? So perfect, right? And so we just rolled these things on, and I had to finagle a little bit to get them, unloaded in my driveway. But Kubert's a pretty light, smaller, lighter cabinet, and both the monitors were out, so that was fine. This weekend, and like I was talking with Liam about this, I actually was close to getting 3, right? So I got that Irish Kangaroo, I got the converted Defender, and there was a converted Dig Dug that I had my eye on, but the seller never responded when I reached out. So I don't know if it was just I know the listing had been up for like a month or so, but so I was doing all this. I'm like, well, technically, right? So these 3 cabinets sort of turn sideways, and in my would be about 70 inches, even with some packing material, right? And so it would be kind of hanging off, right? Because like that's right around the limit of the the bed of my truck, right? So I'm like, okay, well, how overloaded is that going to be? And then even with that, right? So not getting that third, I would have to have all 3 of them standing up, obviously, to move them in a truck. And then I get to Ohio, and everything, right? The TV, my phone, even my car was giving me these weather alerts. High wind advisory, like every highway sign was like high winds, like 70-mile-an-hour gusts, right? Watch out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, right? If I was driving with 3 cabinets upright in the bed of my truck going through like, West Virginia, Pennsylvania mountains or whatever, I could have been in a really bad way. And I was even a little bit worried. The way I transported him today, I had the Kangaroo standing up as the smaller one, and the Defender on its back. It was only hanging out by a couple of inches. So that was very close to being in over my head, because if that had happened, right, I wouldn't have wanted driven in 40 to 70-mile-an-hour winds with 3 upright cabinets in the bed of my truck, which has a bit of a lift, which makes the balance even a little sort of more off. And then if that had happened, I might not have been made at home in time for the podcast. So yeah, for the other guys, anyone who wants to chime in with anytime you've either gotten in over your head or been close to that.
Yeah, I've got one, and it's Joust. That machine, I definitely think I was way in over my head when we got it. We got it probably about a year ago. It's still not done. And when we got it, we were like, oh, it's just $200. It'll be fine. We can just fix it up. It'll turn back into a Joust. No, it was pretty much all the internals were scrapped out, which was not what the ad said. And they were all gone when we got it. The art was not salvageable, so we had to sand it down to wood. And we're having to redo the art, and I redid it once and it didn't do a good job, so I had to scrape all the paint off again and start it fresh. Honestly, if I were to do it again, just get a Joust that was complete but dead, because this thing has turned out to be such a massive time sink. But there is a bright light to it, in that now I am no longer in over my head. I have learned more from doing this. I have obtained new tools, learned new skills, and now I think that once I'm finally done with this, it's going to be beautiful with the fresh stencils and the oil-based paints. But it was definitely a long process to get there that I would not recommend doing. The other thing about making mistakes that have led to changes in how I'm approaching things is get the right tool for a job. Always. Like every time that I've encountered some kind of problem in this hobby that could be solved with a better tool, and I've boneheadedly just stuck with it for a little bit and then eventually got the right tool, it was a revelation. If you're working on monitors, get a TPG and an ISO and test it on a bench. So much better than putting it out next to a cabinet. If you're working on vectors, get a analog oscilloscope. It'll make life so much better, and it's so much safer for the monitor. Soldering, get a desoldering gun. So many people don't have them. They're amazing. I didn't have one for a while. When I got it, it was completely revolutionary. Definitely always just, if there's a tool and you're on the fence about it and it's the right tool for the job, just get the tool. You're going to use it again. It will be worth it.
Here, here. Jeremiah and Kay, any regrets in your collecting or repair history?
Say that was a very inspirational story. You're not in over your head until you give up. So one thing that happened to me and that I've seen happen to other people, when it comes to auctions, whether they're in person or you're doing online or even just bidding on something on eBay, especially when it comes down to the very end, it's real easy to get caught up in the moment and get excited and overbid. It's the same concept I said earlier. You have to set yourself a limit and you have to stick with it and you have to be willing to let that thing go. Because if you don't, it's so easy to raise your hand and bid again. It's so easy to click that button to increase your maximum bid. And before you realize it, you're $500 or $600 over your own limit. And you're like, oh God, I hope someone outbids me. And then they don't. And now you're stuck with your purchase. This has happened to me at, in person and online auctions. So you have to have the same mindset where, okay, this is my limit. I'm not going to go over it. And just the adrenaline rush you get whenever, going once, going twice, anybody else,
I let one go that I really wanted last night because it went over the predetermined price limit that I would pay.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even go over that much, but I was just like, oh, well, it's over.
And you know what's funny, right? So not this, I don't think, this is not like a story that Liam's trying to keep hidden. It was a Robotron, right? On eBay, right? And Liam posted something on Clav where he's 64-bit, basically saying, hey, how much do you think, like price check, I think, kind of a combination for the value of what you had, if you ever thought about selling it versus also like what's a reasonable price for this auction. And, for a working Robotron in decent condition, and all of the Clav folks like, oh, it's like $1,000, something like that. And I'm like, right. Like I've seen even non-working Robotrons go for like 1,000. So, right. It's got to be at least north of 1,200 and potentially, quite a bit more. And so what did this one on eBay go for?
1,200.
1,200. And it wasn't even working, right?
No, completely dead, stone dead.
So a dead Robotron for $1,200. Local pickup only too.
Yeah.
In West Virginia.
Yes.
Right.
So,
so not California.
Not go for that. No.
Yeah. Wild. Jeremiah, other than constantly violating the limits you set for yourself, what regrets do you have?
So I've actually been pretty good about the limits. Going over the driving time, that's not much of anything. That's just my own personal comfort level with driving. So prices, I really haven't overpaid for any project from the get-go. In fact, the most expensive game I ever had was the one that was free, the House of the Dead, because it was like everything on it was broken. But the first time where I really had that humbling experience and thought I've made a mistake, this has gone beyond what I can immediately fix, was back when I lived in Georgia. A dude put on Marketplace. He said, I've got this weird electromechanical claw machine. Seems like a repeating theme here. And he said, $50, I can't get it to work. And I thought, this was before I had one. So I said, well, I'd like to have one. $50, you can't beat that. So I went and got it. And I got it home and it just barely fit through the front door. And it did not fit through the game room door. So if you can imagine a semi-normal kitchen, and then there's this big honking ugly claw machine in the corner of it. And this was the ugliest claw machine I've ever seen. I'll have to send the guys a picture at some point. But that sat in my kitchen for about a week. I thought, you know what I could do with this? I could start a claw machine business. And I knew a guy who had a video game store, and I said, hey, I'll put this in your store. And I ended up doing that, and I ended up losing thousands of dollars. So obviously the whole thing was a disaster. Anyways, another story related to claw machines and being in over my head is that same store. I used that store to demo different games to figure out, okay, certain claw machines, certain brands are nicer, certain ones I can manipulate how much money I'm making versus others where I can't. And I had an older one there called the Kramer crane, and it was a very tall particle board claw machine. I think it was actually made out of like 100% recycled Zaxxons, and it was the heaviest thing, and it was very unbalanced. So basically, I decided to upgrade it because I had gotten a deal. This is right when COVID struck. I had gotten a deal on a ton of like super end claw machines. So I went to replace this one with one of the high end ones, and we had two dudes, me and a friend of mine, Matthew, and we're both in decent shape. We couldn't even lift the thing a foot off the ground to get it on top of a low. And at this point, I thought to myself, that was the first seed of like, I want to end this business because I can't manage moving this stuff without a truck, and I'm not going to buy a truck for this, a moving truck rather.
Did you have to get liability insurance for people like trying to tip a claw machine and winding up with it on top of them?
So here's a fun story. Well, it's not really a story, a fun fact. I never even went full LLC. This claw machine business lasted like 6 months. So I started it off and I just called it Jackson Amusements because in Georgia, it may be the same here or maybe a federal thing, but in Georgia, if you have a name that's like a created name, you have to register for like another $500. So I just went by Jackson Amusements. I didn't get an LLC. I didn't get insurance or anything. I was just kind of, dipping my toes into it and seeing how it went. And thankfully, nothing went wrong. And I decided to get out of it pretty early. And, now it's all 100% behind me. And no children knocked a claw machine over on themselves. If they did, they most certainly would have perished and I would have been in a bad financial situation.
Well, because without a legal entity, it is unlimited liability.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully, Liam didn't perish from a claw machine or any kind of redemption amusement machine falling on him. But we're down to just the Three Musketeers right now. Hopefully, he'll be jumping on shortly. Outrun the Neon Sun, thanks for joining. Said it's a pretty incredible show. Thank you very much. Jay from Delusionals Arcade said y'all need to hit that like button. Yes, thank you. Wouldn't that be amazing? Let's see. While we're waiting for Liam to come back, one other question that we got recently, I believe it was from one of Kay's friends, Ben from West Texas, a personal friend of Kay, who I don't think was able to make it, but he asked us, ever find an animal living or dead or a nest, etc., inside your machines? And I think everyone has found the remains of a nest, bedding material. It's almost rare to find a machine that doesn't have anything like that. And if I think about it, except for games that I know have been cleaned by sellers because they had a reputation they wanted to uphold or whatever, that Armor Tech that I had that I recently got was probably the cleanest machine that I've ever seen. And perhaps the worst one was the Moon Patrol cocktail that I got I don't know, a month or so ago, right before the last podcast. That one, so that was the one that had been sitting out in the elements, right, subjected to rain and weather and whatever, and obviously nothing preventing critters from getting inside. So when I picked it up, no living or dead animals, and I haven't knock on wood encountered that just yet, but both sides of the control panel were just absolutely packed with a nest material to the point where you couldn't move the joystick, right? Because it was packed in there. Liam, welcome back. Looks like we have proof of life, and Liam has not been killed by an amusement device. But yeah, that Moon Patrol, that Moon Patrol, both, because it's a cocktail, right? So there's 1-player and 2-player controls on opposite sides. When I opened both of those control panels, just absolutely jam-packed with nest material. And obviously, the smell of rodent urine and mouse poop and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just to catch you up, man, we had a question from one of yep. Well, that Irish kangaroo probably came from Canada via Ohio.
Are we talking creepy animals and things lodged in arcade machines?
Yeah, what have you found? What's the craziest sort of animal related thing that you found inside a machine?
Well, we picked up that Asteroids Deluxe that was in the abandoned house. And
On Valentine's Day.
on Valentine's Day, it was,
Very
it was
romantic.
a very romantic, wonderful time. We didn't know it was going to be in an abandoned house. We thought it was in a workshop or something. We showed up and had to punch up the ceiling to get inside. And yeah, there was creepy critters all over that thing. There were footprints all over the machine. Sam saw them and was like, nope, 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 this is not coming in the house until it's been cleaned up. We were a little concerned that when we were trying to find the back door that something may still be inside the machine, and then we would have sealed it in. But luckily there were actually very few critters in that machine. When I pulled the power brick, I did find a collection of stink bugs though. But usually the only critters we bring home with us are the free spiders. 9 times out of 10, whenever we grab
Lots of
something, it's going to
spiders.
have free spiders. They come as a donation, so lots of those.
So Jeremiah, your kitty, did he come sort of like hidden inside of an arcade machine? Slash, I got all these jokes, right? Slash, does he ever sort of sneak into a machine to hide? Slash, is he your inspector and you send him to, whenever you get something to do to make sure there are no living rodents inside?
So my cat, he actually taught me how to solder and everything. He knows way more about it than I. I have multiple videos where throughout the claw machine business, I would shut him inside the claw machine and play the claw machine and try to pick him up, and he was so frustrated with it. I'll have to post those somewhere someday. But no, on the topic of living or previously living creatures having been inside your machines, I've had multiple times where, because I mostly repair everything on camera now for video, multiple times where I've found stuff on camera. And if you watch my Pac-Man cocktail repair video, I went to take apart one of them, and the metal control panels in a Bally, the Bally cocktail cabinets, that was just filled with rat's nest. And I think I said like Chuck E. Cheese used my wiring diagram to make a house or something like that. And just thankfully I had a trash can right next to me when I pulled that control panel out, so I was able to dump it there. But yeah, free spider, I don't mind spiders because they don't like stink and they don't poop all over everything. But roaches, mice, stink bugs, and anything like that, they just I keep a shop vac handy whenever I get something new in.
that's
Yeah, we
a
definitely
must.
shop vac'd right before we brought that asteroids in all over outside. But you did bring up something interesting about cats though, Charlie. I recall that when I had my old Mortal Kombat at my parents' place, my mom's cat used it as her favorite hiding spot. She would get into the back of the cabinet because it had no back door and would sit on the PCB. I tried everything to get the cat to not go in the cabinet. It was difficult. I ended up just taping cardboard over the back of the cabinet to prevent the cat from going in there.
So
And she
then
would
you're
still
gonna-
try to get the cardboard off.
You're going to have an overheating issue then.
Yeah,
No airflow.
luckily that cabinet is no longer there and that cat is no longer around. So both of these problems have been resolved.
So you can see, how can I? So I've got a cocktail right there, and I've got a taller game right there. And Mr. Cat there, he likes to jump on top of one onto the other, and on top of the platform I have over my bathroom there. So he does like to utilize the arcade games as a stepping stool to get on top of things he's not supposed to be on top of.
So Frog Puppet in the live chat said he or she accidentally, I think it's a he, accidentally grabbed a dead rat once because it was so disintegrated. I'm assuming inside of a arcade machine. Kay, I'm wondering if you're sitting on something where you're just going to completely like one up all of us on this, with just sort of the volume of machines that you see, maybe with something, very sort of, being in Texas, something very, a Texas critter like an armadillo or something?
No, not typically anything that large. Although to the point earlier, back when I worked out of my garage and I didn't have the shop yet, I usually had the garage door open and the neighbor's cat would come in and inspect all the equipment. I've got a few videos and pictures of her just, being my supervisor and double checking all my work. A lot of the things I buy have, paw prints all over the dust, on the glass and things like that. I find those free spiders and a live black widow once or twice. I've found like dead baby scorpions. small mice, nests, things like that. Before I move any machine, I open up the back and take a look at it. And luckily, I haven't found anything that I had to leave in the back of the truck and put a roach bomb in before I brought it into the shop. Nothing's been that bad. But here in West Texas, what I find more often than anything is dirt dauber nests. Pretty much any machine that spent any amount of time in storage or in someone's garage, or especially outside, is going to have dirt dauber nests, especially up by the marquee and under the control panel. Haven't found any live ones. They're just nests you can just grab and yank off and throw outside. But
Yeah, we had that on my Mortal Kombat machine when we got it.
So if you actually bust one of those up, you'll note that they're actually filled with free spiders, because that's what those insects eat. So it's kind of like a combo deal.
Like 5 for 1 or something.
Yeah, and it's in a neat little package too.
And we're getting some other folks. So I guess that disintegrated rat that Frog Puppet found was inside a centipede. I wonder if anyone's ever found a centipede inside of a centipede. So a Sentienception. Sheline Gaming, Josh from Encore was saying Scorpion inside of a Mortal Kombat. That would be too perfect. And Sheline said she only ever finds quarters and straws. And Carl O, thanks for joining. And thanks to Sheline for bringing us additional viewers like Carl. So I think we've hit a record so far, 23 concurrent viewers. That's pretty cool. And for those of you that are watching live, if like Frog Puppet, you joined late, you missed the beginning. We post the live stream back on YouTube. It takes some hours for it to process, but you'll be able to rewatch it on YouTube by tomorrow. And we also upload all of our podcasts, and this is only our second one, to anchor.fm, which is now called Spotify for podcasters. And from there, it gets replicated to virtually every, popular platform for podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of these things that I'm forgetting. So virtually every podcast platform that I could find, that I could set up, we are on all of those. So thank you to everyone who's watching live on the live stream, and anyone who's catching us later. So let's see. Jay from Delusionals Arcade said he found a ladybug in a Universal cabinet. He freaked out, so he didn't know what to Mr. do. So I think that's a joke. Had us going there for a second. A ladybug inside a ladybug. Yeah. So a lot of dad jokes going around. So back on our sort of topics of the episode, and this is not meant to be one that's sort of a facing your own mortality or anything like that, but like, what's the end game, right? Where do you want your collection to go? Where do you want it to end up? What do you want to happen, Kay, to these 100 machines, inside your warehouse? If you are struck by a meteor, a very small localized impact, right? Tomorrow, what do you want to happen to your collection and all these, unfinished projects?
It's funny you say that, because one of the local landmarks around here is a meteor crater. So it's entirely possible for one of them to hit my shop and, end me early. But Ben, the guy who asked that question earlier, and shout out to Ben for being my literal partner in crime as we bought stolen machines together. If we start having,
if any law enforcement personnel are knowing, you didn't know they were hot at the time.
Just say, if we start doing a guest at some point, we should have them on so we can tell that story, because it's quite a tell. But in the event of my death, it's my wife knows to contact him, because he's the local guy that has an eye and the knowledge for this as well, and he could figure out what to do with these machines and determine which ones are worthy projects, which one should be sold as is, which one should be restored. He could help sort all that out, and I am also the contact in case that happens to him, so I could help him, or I could help his wife and family figure out what to do with their collection and how to liquidate all that. So we have an out in each other.
So you basically have like a will for your arcade collection.
I mean, it's verbal, but yeah.
Hey, verbal contracts are binding. What was I going to say? yeah, maybe everyone needs to have like an emergency contact, inside of their machines, right? Like in case of my untimely demise, please contact, next of arcade kin. And I
Please
think
bury me
there's
with my stuff.
inside, right? Like, Jay was saying, you could fit 2 grown adults inside of a 6-player X-Men. But I think there's a joke or a comic that somebody made years ago, really more in the pinball community because the prices there are so much higher. For the most part, it said something like, "My greatest fear is that when I die, my wife will sell my pinball collection for what I told her it cost me to buy them." So yeah, I don't recommend being dishonest with your significant other about large purchases. Jeremiah, what do you want to happen to your cocktail claw machine after you are have left the mortal bonds of Earth or whatever it's called?
I want to be deposited into a landfill with haste. No,
Out of spite?
I don't know. It'd just be kind of funny that I put all this effort into getting it and I cherish it so much. And then when I die, it's just gone. But that's how it goes. I just lost my grandfather about 2 weeks ago, and we're having to go through all his precious stuff. We're having to go through all his precious stuff. And he was the first generation fire sprinkler engineer in the family. So I'm getting a lot of his old fire sprinkler stuff. And even though I cherish that, if I or my dad weren't here, that stuff would just get thrown out. And this stuff, well, that largely depends on if I die when I have kids or not. Or maybe I'll have kids and they won't care about this kind of stuff. So I don't know. If I find a local guy that likes this stuff and then I die, I'll just leave it to him. But who knows? I thought this question was supposed to not be about
Yeah, this is
we die.
slightly different than I
Maybe I'm
intended
not-
this question to be asked.
I think the goal was what is your end goal?
Yeah.
So let me
Yeah, that's how I read the question.
I
But
took it
instead,
too
hey, if you
literally.
get randomly murdered, what happens to your stuff?
I leave everything.
It's almost funnier that way, but no, that was not what.
Can I have your Zaxxon when you're gone?
Sure. You can have it now. No, you can't.
No, thanks. Not interested.
So goals for the collecting. Well, like I've mentioned 38 times now, I'm as done as I can be. Yes, I'm open to a mappy, and maybe there's something that'll catch my eye that I'll just go above and beyond to get. But the goal was to just to learn how this stuff worked. I had a few particular machines that I wanted to own to play, like a Pac-Man and Galaga, and then some of the associated, like the Super Pac and Miss Pac-Man. And I wanted to see how those different claw machines worked, so I got those. And now I really don't have any more goals. I mean, I'd like to have that Mappy and play it, but I've got Mappy on like 5 different game systems, and I can play that, and it plays just fine. So my goal was to have some games that I like, to have some games that I wanted to learn about, and I've done that. So that's my goal, and I've achieved it.
And that's that. Okay. Liam, how about you?
Well, as I've mentioned before, Sam and I, we have a list, and we are a little under halfway through that list. Ideally, once we get through it, that'll be the collecting done. What we really want is to have a nice slice of the 80s, 90s, and I guess in the case of the jukeboxes, the 50s in our home that we can just sort of visit that's disconnected from everything else. So disconnected, in fact, that one of Sam's ideas, which I love, is to turn one of the doors into like a Star Trek hallway / door that you just go through to enter this this arcade area. Just have it as a sort of a part museum, part entertainment zone. We have little placards above all our games that describe little fun facts about their development history and the game itself. I just really like preserving this part of history and bringing these things back to life. And hopefully we'll have this nice collection of games that we find significant to us, significant to history, that kind of thing, and just try to keep that alive for our kids when they come along and their friends, because by that time, these things are going to be pushing 60.
Yeah, they're already getting. It's almost a miracle that some of these are working, even with assistance from repair and restoration work. I think for me, right, like end goal, I'm having fun, right? Like I'm enjoying repairing them and working on them and playing them too. I think my kids have already shown quite a bit of interest in them. So hopefully, when I've shed this mortal coil, as Frog Puppet in the live chat reminded me, I would imagine that maybe not all of them, maybe not all of the games and maybe not all of the kids, but I would imagine that some of these games will end up with some of my kids. In terms of like, the end state for the collection, I'm at about 20, maybe a little bit more games right now. And I think my capacity, is probably about 30, right? Between the garage and the house. And I've got one at the office. And from there, it'll probably it'll be that steady state and start to rotate, right? Games will come into the collection, I'll repair them, restore them, enjoy them, maybe decide, hey, this is not a keeper, and I'll sell it or trade it for something that I want. I've got a neighbor across the street that just built this like really cool pool cabin sort of thing by his pool, and he wants to set up a game room, so I can maybe sell some to him or use that for storage. I've got a buddy who I'm doing this Golden Team 99 for eventually, and I just found another a friend of mine or coworker just sort of learned that I'm into it, and now her mom's got a Pac-Man and a Missile Command that are not working, so I think I've been co-opted into helping to work on them, and I don't mind at all. So yeah, I think eventually it'll start to be like a rotating collection, sort of around 25-30 being the limit. What I really want to do, so like right now I've got these games here, and some of them are off camera, you can't see. And this is like my office in the basement, and it was an arcade before it was an office. And I've got games in the garage, projects, and a couple working games in the garage. I have one working game at work. I think eventually I'm going to bring at least one more game to work, and I've probably got room there for 6 before it'll become a problem. What I'd really like to do, and that the NBA Jam that my wife is having me bring into the house from the garage is actually going to go in the kids' playroom in the basement, which is a significantly larger room. Like this, I don't know how it looks from the picture. This is actually a very small room, like smaller than even like a small like motel, room. That playroom is much bigger, and I could probably get 25 games in that playroom. So long term, I'm hoping to co-opt that and maybe even turn this into the kids' playroom, because most of the time they're not even in the playroom, they're watching TV on the couch, right? So turn that into an arcade. I can just surround the whole room with games and maybe put some pins like back to back to each other in the middle. So that's sort of more of the medium term plan. But yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun with this, and we'll see where things take us. And I'm just seeing myself waving my hands all around, really violent hand gestures. So let's see. I don't know if
so. I guess I can answer
any...
the question, without referring to my death. The question that I think we intended it to be. The end goal for my game room, it's a small space. I've got 6 games in there. Granted, one of them's a DDR, so it's huge. I can't really fit anything more than that unless I took the couch out. I could fit another pinball on the space of the couch, but then you wouldn't really have anywhere to sit.
Just get one of those driving games with a seat on it. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I'd like to put a Crazy Taxi in there, and you can just sit on that. We have talked about expanding the house a little bit. We have a 2-car garage that's just used for storage. She wants to turn half of that into a master bathroom for our bedroom. And then I could use the other half to expand my game room, because it connects in between the in-law suite and the house. So we could actually put a door in there. You could walk into the in-law suite without having to walk outside. So that would more or less double my space if I did that. I could fit some more things in there, but I'm not hurting for that. That's certainly not a short-term goal. It's just something if we decide to do later on, I could revamp that room and put some black light carpeting in there and make it look a lot more like an 80s arcade. But it's not a pipe dream, but it's not really a goal, but it could be something to do in the future. And I could fit a few more things in there. And I do have some things on my want list that I could eventually come across and put in there. But it has to be at a price, I'm willing to pay, because, my friend Ben is at the Texas Pinball Festival and he sent me a picture of a really nice looking upright Warlords, which is one of the games on my list. I would love to have a Warlords, but it had a $2,500 price tag on it. And I love Warlords. I don't $2,500 love Warlords. So
Well,
just gonna have to let that one go.
and I think Ben mentioned that why he wasn't going to be able to watch the live stream. But you know, Warlords are actually really cheap, especially cocktail Warlords.
I've
I don't
heard
know
that,
if
yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I don't know if you all saw this, but Andy from Moto's Cades and Coffee and MCC Just Cades, Andy Lee goes by Fly R Lee on Clav, and I think he's somewhat local to Liam and me. I think Andy's in Maryland. He posted a video today, a pickup video, and I think he got a working Warlords cocktail for free, but then like felt guilty and like gave the guy money. Yeah, so
That's such an insane.
right, and there's a couple for sale right now. I think one of them's like $4,000. And if you know anyone listening is not familiar with it, so Warlords is basically multiplayer breakout, right? And the upright version is 2 players, and you're kind of like break out against each other, right? And you're like trying to protect a king or something.
And the upright
And
version was also black and white.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
It
I've
was
only ever
behind
seen
the
the
color
cocktail.
overlay.
over the monitor.
So the cocktail was more significant for it because it had a color.
And so the cocktail is 4 players and 2, and so it's like you sit on the wide side and it's 2 players on each side, but you have a corner that you're defending and you're sort of right. And it's one of the few 4-player cocktails. I know track and field had a 4-player cocktail. I think maybe Hat Trick maybe it was
Eliminator had one too.
4-player eliminator. Yeah, so very, I mean, 4-player, especially Golden Age, 4-player simultaneous games are rare, right? There are very few of them. And this one is very sort of sought after because it's, you know, breakout style is very pick up and play. But yeah, so apparently Andy found one, and I think the story was, and you should all just go watch this video, but like he has a you know, you go to diners or whatever, like local restaurants, and like the paper placemat will have like little, like, you know, business card size ads for local businesses, right? Like Joe's Auto Body Shop and, you know, whatever insurance and real estate agents or whatever. And he has one that says, I buy and sell, you know, old arcade and pinballs. And this person like called him up and said, hey, I've got this, you know, a cocktail machine. Do you want it for free? And it turned out to be, it turned out to be a Warlords. And I think like they had to do something to it to get it to boot, but it was working. And yeah, he felt guilty taking it for free and gave the guy some money. So yeah, pretty crazy pickup there.
It's like somebody walking over and giving you the keys to a mid-2000s SUV and going, have fun. It's about the same in monetary value.
Yeah. Here's a free Lamborghini.
Although you can do a lot more with an SUV or a Lamborghini than you can with a
You could go get a free Warlords.
Good, there you go.
Goodness.
Yeah, you'd have something to put in the back of it. Yeah,
Well,
I'd really like an upright one though, because that's I didn't play that game as a kid. I never knew about it, but we had one in the first arcade I worked at, and the upright is the one that I know and love. Plus, I don't have 3 friends, so what good is a cocktail going to do me?
You've only got Ben.
Yeah,
Well, what's the
Ben can come
show?
over and be my player too, but other than that, you know, there's 2 other players who are just going to sit there.
You don't have 3 friends. What's this show?
Oh, I'm sorry. Y'all all going to drive down to West Texas and play
Yeah.
Warlords?
Well, Liam will.
Only if you got a 6-player X-Men in the back.
I had a 6-player X-Men once, but I didn't know you then. So, and I got it for free, just so you know.
No expletives here.
If it's
so
any
looking-
consolation, it wasn't working in any capacity, but it was
Looking
complete.
at the live chat real quick, Jay from Delusionals Arcade said his other buddy Jay had 4 cocktail Warlords. I don't know if that was all at once or what.
Why?
That's almost like it's like a quad poke. There's like a quad pokey joker somewhere there. Wayne says, hey Wayne, Warlords kind of reminds him of Rampart. Yeah, I could see that.
There's no
Somebody
way
else.
that's true.
Jay also likes the upright because it's the same cabin as Rolling Thunder and 2-player Gauntlet. I didn't know that. Frog Puppet says
no, it's
there's
not.
one for sale in Georgia for 4K. I think I've seen that one, Frog. And Frog also said just picked up Championship Sprint for free and gave the people $50 as a thank you. That was nice. And that reminds me of something funny I just ran into. So my team at work just did a really, really awesome thing. They had basically they searched for something, did an awesome job, and we rewarded them like in a bunch of different ways. And one of the things I wanted to do as a thank you was like get them custom t-shirts made. And you know, so it's software development, software engineering, and like the sort of blocks of time that you spend on stuff, you call them sprints, right? So you might work on a series of tasks for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and you refer to those things as sprints. And they did this thing that we were calling a super sprint, which gave me the idea. So I designed this t-shirt, and I took the marquee from Super Sprint, right? And had like, you know, new high score for the number of tasks they completed during the super sprint. So it's a super sprint, it has all the stuff. And then the screen is sort of in the middle of the t-shirt, and it has the high score. And also our company's logo kind of looks like one of the tracks in super sprint. So I had that there where the track would be for super sprint. And we sent that to a t-shirt printing place that came back and said, sorry, we can't print this because it's the copyright is owned by Warner Media. And I said, everything about that is wrong. Everything about that is wrong. Super Sprint didn't come out until 86, I believe, and Warner Media sold Atari in 84. So even if there is a valid sort of copyright, you know, a claim there or something, it's definitely not Warner Media that owns the copyright to an Atari game that came out after them. So I'm just going to keep sending it to different online t-shirt makers until someone sends the order through. But yeah, Frog talking about Championship Sprint reminded me of that. I was very proud with my, you know, terrible Microsoft Paint editing, but yeah, we'll get that t-shirt made and maybe I'll wear it on a future podcast. And I know, so I'm wearing an Arcade Radio t-shirt, so another great relevant podcast to the hobby. And Kay, you're wearing a t-shirt from Retrovania, which is also a retro gaming podcast, right?
Yeah, it's not arcades, but it is, you know, just retro console gaming and reviews of those. Some good friends of mine that I've known for, you know, 20 plus years run that, and they're in their 7th or 8th year of running that podcast, so they're doing all right.
But Castlevania, there was arcade versions of. I've got it for
That's
the
true.
Play Choice 10. There was Versus Castlevania.
There's Haunted Castle, which no one should
yeah.
ever play.
It's awful. I played that at Game Galaxy right outside of Nashville. I think it's Smyrna, Tennessee.
It's like not
Game
even
is
is that game
terrible.
unplayable, but you can't even brute force your way through it because there's like a limited amount of continues. No matter how many quarters you have, after like 3 continues, it forces you to start the game over anyway.
Well, and it kind of reminds me, we were talking before about Kangaroo, and I was saying in the chat how somehow Mama Kangaroo in that game has less speed and agility than Jumpman or Mario in Donkey Kong. And it kind of reminds, like, so like if you play, you know, normal Castlevania, whether it's on the NES or Versus or Play Choice 10, you know, Simon Belmont is not exactly Samus Aran. It's, you know, Simon's not jumping around doing backflips, whatever. Simon's kind of like a plodding sort of character. But then you play Haunted Castle, and it's like, you know, with cement shoes, you know, wading through molasses, slow, completely unresponsive, sluggish. It's almost like a bad bootleg ripoff of Castlevania, but it was a first-party game developed by Konami as an arcade exclusive. Jay Leon, Dell, he's from Providence, right? He has the Providence Free Play Arcade. And I think he also is John's partner in John's and Jay's arcade at the Hangar Pub and Grill. So maybe he had four Warlords cocktails at 4 different locations. Crazy.
No, he had them all right next to each other, all linked together for 16-player action.
Instead of Kong off, it was Warlords off, maybe. And he said Jeff picked up a Space Fury for free. I'm assuming he means Jeff Kinder. That's pretty nuts. The only machine I've ever gotten for free was that golden T99 that I will eventually be restoring for a buddy of mine. You guys ever have a free machine fall into your lap before?
I've gotten a couple machines for free before. Just, hey, I've got it in the garage. Come get it out of my way. All those slot machines, I got those for free. Very rarely do I take something for free and not give them, at least $50 or whatever. For one thing, it's they'll remember me if I give them money. So I give them, that on top of a business card. And if they come across something else, I want them to call me first. So the easiest way to make them remember me is to give them cash.
Was it cash or store credit?
That's not a bad idea. He's like, hey, $200 store credit. Anytime you want something, just holler at me. That way they're forced to come back to me.
We paid $75 for our Space Invaders and for our Asteroids Deluxe each. So I think those are the close to free games.
That's pretty good.
My most expensive game, The House of the Dead, which I think I mentioned last time, took around $2,000 to get back working. That was free.
Yeah, free like a puppy, right? Required a lot of care and love and feeding and attention.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're coming up on 2 hours, and I'm getting a warning about the bit rate again. So hopefully the quality has been a bit better today, audio wise. I unplugged the kids' Xbox, so I'm not competing with any online gaming, and hopefully this new microphone that I got is a bit better. But yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here. Everybody, Jeremiah, Kay, Liam, thanks for joining as always. All of our awesome viewers, everyone in the chat. Jay from Delusionals Arcade, Boron recently joined us, Wayne, Frog Puppet, She Lion, everybody scrolling back, Carl O, Outrun the Neon Sun. Now I'm going to feel bad if I don't get everybody. I know Eric from Outlaws of the West was in here for a bit. Jeff Kinder, all these awesome people. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thanks everybody for listening live, listening afterwards. I don't know if the guys, if you want to give some parting words or plug your content or where everybody can find you separately.
Yeah, sure. You can find me at Retrobotics on YouTube. I'm trying to put more videos up. It's really taken me a little bit of time to get into the speed of it, but I've got more Robotron coming soon and Smash TV coming tomorrow. So hopefully there will be some videos of that. And Sam's got another couple restorations that she's been doing that hopefully will be up on that soon.
I'm Jeremiah Jackson with Coin Op Corner, and I'm hoping to have another video up, a 17-minute video about a cigarette machine up, maybe within the next 2 to 4 days. So go ahead and subscribe if you don't want to miss that.
My name's Kay. I'm the owner of Prime Arcade Sales and Repair down here in West Texas. I'm on TikTok and Facebook. You can find the links in the description of this YouTube. Facebook is mostly for my business stuff, so that's where I post my machines for sale. TikTok is more about kind of my video blog where I show off projects I pick up, repairs I've done, little adventures I have along the way, deliveries, things like that. So shoot me a follow there and you can see what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. And again, I'm Charlie from Overtime Arcade on YouTube. Again, want to thank everyone for listening and watching. I'm going to try to do our outro with Jeremiah's custom theme song, and we'll see everybody in a month.